Hello, everyone. Welcome and good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today on our webinar, 5 Steps to Holiday Readiness. Even though I completely refuse to acknowledge that the holidays are already upon us here in late October. My name is Blake Sanabria. I'm the Director of Client Success here at Volusion. My sole responsibility really is for ensuring that our merchants receive an all-in-one e-commerce experience so that they have all the tools, they have all the support, they know the ins and outs of the Volusion platform so that they can successfully grow their businesses. We are able to do this. One of the ways that we're able to do this is by partnering with experts like Avalara. So as we all know, along with the busy holiday season, also comes that nasty 4-letter word, taxes, right? That's exactly what Avalara specializes in. Avalara AvaTax automatically calculates sales and use tax for transactions, invoices, and other activity on your Volusion storefront. We have Kate Baholski and Darren Burt from Avalara here with us today, who are going to walk you through how to stay tax compliant during this busiest shopping season of the year. First, before we get started, there's just a few housekeeping items that I'll quickly go through. We will send you a link to watch the recording of this webinar in a follow-up email tomorrow. So be looking for that. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to submit them during the presentation in the Q&A box to the left of this media player. We'll be answering questions live in the chat, but if we don't get a chance to address your question in today's webinar, we will be following up with you directly after this webinar here. Also, be sure to click any links in the related content section for more information on holiday preparedness and also some of Avalara's products. To learn more about how Avalara can help you and your business, visit that link that was included in the webinar email. We'll also be sure to include that in the follow-up email that you'll be receiving tomorrow. That's all I have. We can go ahead and get started here. Thanks so much for hosting today's webinar, and I will hand it over to you, Kate and Darren.
Thank you so much for that great introduction, Blake. We appreciate you running through that. Thanks again for doing this webinar with us. My name is Darren Burt. I'm the Strategic Alliance Manager with Avalara. Kate and I are aligned with the Volusion partnership to work with the clients and for their tax compliance needs. I've actually been with the company for a little over 3 years, and we've had the pleasure recently, Kate and I, of being aligned together with Volusion and Blake and some of the team over there, and we're super excited. They've been a great partner for years. We love being able to help the mutual clients out and figure out their compliance needs. With that, I'll let Kate, if you want to introduce yourself real quick.
Sure, thanks, Darren. Hi, everybody. I'm Kate Baholski, and I'm proud to say I am a sales tax super nerd. I love it, and I love it so much. Hopefully, I can help you so that you don't have to love it at all or worry about it. I've been with Avalara for a couple of years now and have had the pleasure of working with dozens of Volusion customers. And what I have learned is that you have such a great customer base, and so many different types of businesses selling so many different types of things. It's been great. It's been really fun for me to get to know everybody, and hopefully if you're interested in learning more, I would be your representative from the Avalara side to walk you through the wonderful world of sales tax compliance. So with that, Darren, you want to quickly just go over our agenda here? Well, actually, we can probably just kind of move along here so people can have been
I think Blake,
a little bit.
Yeah, I think Blake touched on some of that stuff.
Yeah, perfect.
But yeah, that's yes, we know not everyone's as passionate and excited about sales tax as we are. So we're going to run through some things. One thing to Kate's point that I would like to mention is, there's a lot of content with sales tax being as complex as it is. There's a lot of stuff we could throw at you, but we try not to be too overwhelming in the webinar. We kind of give you a high-level overlook and see where we might be able to give you some information. And then, like Kate mentioned about a follow-up call, and Blake mentioned as well, we're always happy to jump on a 30-minute Zoom meeting afterwards. That way we can kind of address your individual situations and see how Avalara might be able to help you out. From a company standpoint, we've been in operation since 2004. We started on Bainbridge Island, just near Seattle, Washington. We've grown and successfully scaled quite a bit, especially in the past 3 years. With 3,300 employees worldwide, that's actually up to about 4,600 or 700, I think. We've recently, I believe 2.5 years ago, opened a very large office in Pune, India, and we've grown that office pretty significantly, which has taken that number up to over 4,000. We can see we have 20 offices, our largest being in Seattle and Durham, and then Durham, North Carolina, and then Pune, India. We were able to serve customers from 95 different countries, and we also have close to now about 1,700 partner integrations. And what that means, perfect example with Volusion, we work with the Volusion team to build a connection into our system and have the software work for the Volusion clients. We've got over, like I said, about 1,700 now pre-built integrations, and Volusion's been one that we take a lot of pride in because it works very, very well, and the support from both sides. When you do talk to Avalara and end up signing on and working with the connection, there's that support level on both sides. You can see a couple different, oh, sorry, Kate, go back real quick. Just a couple things real quick. You can see $12.9 billion in sales and use tax remitted in 2020. Everything we have is cloud-based, which we'll get into a little bit later. The accuracy on it is superb. More than 3 million returns filed by us in 2020. And then you can see the massive amount of API calls that were made by customers. So, okay. So why sales tax matters? The short of it, the answer is that there's real repercussions to not getting it right, not getting it done correctly, especially when you talk about the United States. We all know sales tax varies from state to state, depending on the product, the taxability, the jurisdiction. There's local, there's state jurisdictions. States have different filing schedules. So the short answer of it is it matters because there's real repercussions from an audit standpoint and from a business standpoint and being productive and the customer experience. So it's getting it right up front, which is what we're able to help you do by automating that process and not having to rely on the manual process is a much smoother transition. Several years ago with the South Dakota versus Wayfair decision, when economic nexus laws came into effect, there were 6 states that had those laws. Now, because of the economic nexus laws that exist in the country, and we'll get into a little bit further later, but there's 45 states that have those, and those states rely on state and local tax sales revenue. It says 23.6%. I think that number is a little bit higher with the studies that just got released last year of states. Revenue comes specifically from sales tax, and each state sets its own sales tax rates and laws, which again just adds to the complexity of it for businesses to have to manually manage that. As far as COVID-19, we've all seen the changes that it's affected, not only us in our personal lives, but also from a business standpoint. The shift to online sales, people not going out to stores as much. There's been some tax relief things too, which is what the slide is kind of highlighting. What that's done, it's actually created state budget deficits, and you'll see 290 billion in 2021. It's just a massive number. What does that mean, right? What that means is, okay, if you want to go to the next slide, it's going to increase the likelihood of audits for businesses. States are needing that revenue. They're needing that money. They don't want to miss out on it, whether it's from an economic nexus legislation or if it's from tax relief due to COVID-19. The bottom line is that it's just a real cost to not doing these things correctly, which is where Volusion and Avalara can come in, again, with automating this process for businesses. It increases productivity. Most businesses, when you're talking about having to track and do sales and use tax properly and manage that process, it's a non-revenue generating task, right? So for businesses, you're spending all that time trying to get it right instead of automating it and being able to allocate those business resources to more revenue generating tasks to help the business.
All right. Well, Darren, thank you so much for the introduction about Avalara and giving us a guide as to the why behind the complexity of U.S. sales tax and the growth and changes that have happened since that Wayfair law was passed in 2018. So let's talk about the 2022 holiday sales season. Here we go. It seems to be happening every year. I feel like in August, I'm going to the stores and I'm seeing Halloween and fall decor. And come September, we've already moved into New Year's and Christmas holidays and things like that. So we know it's happening sooner, and it's certainly happening sooner for online sellers as well. November and December of 2021, we saw the sales grow 14% in comparison to the previous year. So we know that year after year, people are getting ready for the holiday season. And I think really has to do with the growth of e-commerce, right? I mean, how easy it is to be laying back at home in the evening, watching something on Netflix or Hulu or whatever streaming of choice that you utilize, and here you are shopping online. So you can anticipate that to be early again this year as well. So in anticipation, let's start talking about some tips. So one tip that we'd like to share with you is considering your supply chain now in order to be holiday ready, right? So we know that Amazon and Walmart, they are aware of this, and they did this last year. They really drove e-commerce sales last year by solving some of those supply chain issues that smaller merchants weren't able to accomplish. So just a thought for you all, just see what you can do now, be proactive, and think about that. Hopefully for you, you have that at least 14% growth in comparison to last year, maybe even more, right, this holiday season. So just be ready for that. Another tip is understanding how storing and delivering goods can impact your NEXUS. You're going to hear us talk about NEXUS. NEXUS is the law that it's the relationship between your business and the state that says you have triggered NEXUS in a state for a variety of reasons, perhaps physically, you have physical NEXUS in a state, or economically. And you'll learn more about that later. But your goods can trigger physical NEXUS. So it's important that you have an understanding of that. And that's something that we can certainly walk you through. Part of the Avalara promise is that we will do a full sales tax compliance analysis for your business and help you understand if you have some of these things that might be triggering some hidden NEXUS that you're not aware of, like drop shipping or using, if you sell on Amazon, in addition to your Volusion site or other marketplaces, if you are using the Amazon FBA fulfillment centers, you may indeed have some NEXUS in some states, and we'll help walk you through that and help you understand possible repercussions, but more importantly, how you can become proactive moving forward. So you can expect sales at brick and mortar stores to make a comeback. Yay! People are out and about, they're shopping, they are we know COVID-19 is still in effect and certainly hasn't completely gone away. I think we all can agree that things are moving forward in a positive direction, and we are no longer hiding in our homes just doing e-commerce sales, but certainly the growth is there as well. So yeah, Black Friday foot traffic was 47% higher in 2021 and compared to the previous year. And again, I think we can all admit that COVID-19 had a big player in that. And so, it'll be interesting to see. I don't know about you, Darren, if you've done any, read any studies or anything that you're doing on a Friday night, researching sales tax compliance and seeing how else you can help your customers with this. But
yeah, I think the thing is, like, we're starting to see trends like what you're trying to kind of highlight for whether it's e-commerce online sellers or whether it's brick and mortar. A lot of the Volusion clients that we talk to have that mix, whether it's send sales, e-commerce, brick and mortar. That just increases, again, the complexity of the tax compliance laws that you're having to deal with. And these are just some trends, like Kate was saying, that we're starting to see. It's not quite come around, obviously, to pre-COVID levels as far as people getting out there, but it's definitely shifting in a positive direction. And I think those e-commerce sales, those online sales, right? I mean, they're not going anywhere. like Kate was describing, if someone's sitting there watching TV, it's so easy just to be on your phone and order something online. But I think there is that trend. We're starting to see more people kind of return to stores, which is encouraging. I think another tip that some studies we've looked at recently, this just highlights one of them where, a couple examples, Walmart and Best Buy saw some foot traffic fall, and the study kind of was trying to investigate as to why that would be the case for them. But then Target, especially with Target and Walmart being similar in terms of product offerings in the stores, why were they starting to see an increase? And some of the things that the study showed was, they were just being proactive, right? They weren't reacting to things. When COVID hit, businesses had to shift. They had to shift their models, different revenue streams, different ways to try to stay afloat and stay profitable. And one of the things they found with Target, what they did was just kind of maintaining stock, despite the changes, and then just aggressive promotions, and then different things like curbside pickup, and then also increasing that, some businesses will have an online presence where you can purchase it, but to increase the productivity of that site and offer more benefits from that site, whether it's by promotions or just ease of ordering, has definitely benefited companies like Target. So
I have to add one thing to this slide, Darren. They are missing, in my opinion, this is obviously not statistically driven, but the main thing that Target has is they have a Starbucks in their store. Did they not?
Yeah.
Ask about that in the slide, right?
Well, the customer experience, right? It's important, whether it's online and it's just the ease of the checkout process, or if there's any blockers that are coming up that make it more difficult, that's going to affect it. So yeah, for sure.
Exactly. And I find that oftentimes when I talk to my Volusion customers as well, is we talk about that customer experience, right? We talk about how how Avalara can possibly help, right? So we want to make sure that they really understand the full sales tax that their customers are going to be buying, especially if they're going to be shipping overseas.
Right.
The Volusion integration can calculate that international tax so that their customers really understand, what exactly is going to be expected of them.
Yeah, that's a great point, Kate. And just a point of note too for Blake and his team, they've put a lot of work into having those capabilities for the system to be able to work with Volusion and Avalara from the VAT perspective and cross border. So you can be confident in that for sure. So. All right, so just holiday 2022 e-commerce sales likely to climb. Again, it's catching up. We're still not as good as pre-COVID levels, but the percentages are starting to scale in the right direction. Just want to remind people too, before we go on to this slide, to throw some questions in the chat. Kate and I are happy to stop at any point if it's something you want us to elaborate further on, or if it's something that can be addressed at the end. What we'll do is just when we're finished running through the slides, we'll address those questions. Looks like we've got a couple in there already, which is great, and fantastic turnout so far. A lot of people on the call, so we really appreciate that. All right, just so again, just a slower pace. Businesses having to adjust. What that means for businesses too, I think anyway, is just that it makes it hard to predict. It makes it harder to follow a business plan, to kind of predict what sales are going to be. So again, just being able to be proactive about it, whether it's from a tax compliance standpoint or whether it's just having your stock, being ready for the holidays. That's just what we're going over here. All right, so increasingly more and more, especially with e-commerce sales just kind of exploding in the last 5 to 10 years, we've found with some of our studies that we've outsourced that shoppers already know what they want before making a purchase, whether it's in a store or online. They follow influencers now, they read reviews, search different product websites, and research shows that about 2/3 of sales are digitally influenced as of 2021, and this includes just driving traffic to your website, paid advertising, and then sponsoring influencers.
Yeah, and Darren, I had mentioned earlier that word nexus. What I find talking with a lot of Volusion customers is this is a really helpful concept that I'm trying to guide them on and to understand more, is that there's something called click-through nexus. So I talked a little bit about physical nexus, about having inventory and where that might be. You mentioned the Wayfair and how that changed economic nexus, which means you don't have that physical footprint, but you do sell into that state. Well, there's also this click-through nexus, which has to do with the possibility if you have relationships with other businesses that are driving people to your site, believe it or not, that can potentially, and of course, there's always the what if, not sure, exclusions to the rule. Every state's law is different about it, but it could potentially trigger some nexus for you, which could be found in an audit. So we know economic nexus laws are based on your sales revenues and transactions into a state. So it's important to really understand, what this happens and where you need to be registered, and then where you need to be charging tax. So nexus is definitely one of the many things we discuss on client calls to, help people get on the right track for sure. So let's get into it. So we've talked a lot about growth and complexities and things like that, but let's talk about really 5 good steps to help you get ready for obviously the sales tax component of compliance when it comes to your holiday sales. So these are the 5 main pieces that you need to understand when it comes to the full compliance aspects of sales and use tax. So first of all, is really understanding where your business should be collecting and remitting tax. We've mentioned that word nexus. And then once you do establish nexus, what do you do about it? Well, you can't just start charging tax. You have to first register with the state and say, all right, state of South Carolina, I'm going to go ahead and get registered. And I promise I'm going to charge the correct sales tax amount to your customers moving forward. And then calculate the right rate in all 13,000 tax jurisdictions that exist in the US, right? And then I'm going to eventually give that money back to you. And by the way, if you are dealing with any tax exempt customers, or perhaps you are selling through resellers, you have a wholesale model to your business, in addition to the end consumer, understanding and tracking and managing exempt certificates and sales.
Hey, can you touch on something real quick? Because we had a question pop up. Just go back to that slide.
Sure.
So a lot of times it's fairly common, and Kate and I have both seen this, and maybe Kate, you can elaborate on this, why it's such an issue. But a lot of times, as you increase your sales to different states throughout the country, right, your nexus obligations are increasing. It becomes more and more complicated. What would you say to someone who thinks, oh, well, I'll just go ahead and register in every state and just go ahead and do it this way, or just I'm only selling into these 5 states, I'm just going to go ahead and register there? Like, how, if you could just kind of elaborate on why that's a problem for me.
Sure. No, that's great. And I appreciate the someone asking that question. So sure, certainly. Obviously any business decision that you do is your decision, but that at Avalara, we really try to guide you. We have a whole tax advisory team that are true CPAs and can give legal, true sales tax advice, right? And so what we have come to understand working with our tax advisory team is they do caution customers about that. And this is why. When you fill out that registration that says, all right, South Carolina, I'm gonna register, I'm gonna collect, they're gonna ask you some questions on that registration. They're gonna ask you about what your previous maybe quarter or year, however that state may word it. They're gonna ask you about your previous sales into that state. And they're gonna ask you questions that basically say, when did you trigger nexus? So if you, for example, had an employee in South Carolina that you've been paying payroll for the past 5 years, and you go ahead and register and you say, oh yeah, I've just triggered nexus in the previous 90 days, that could trigger a red flag because the state has records showing that you've actually had physical presence in that state, right? Because you've been paying payroll there, you have an employee that lives there. And so you can really get into some complexities there. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't register, because obviously that's what you want to do. But you can utilize, third-party CPA to help you understand this, as well as obviously Avalara's team of professionals to help you understand if indeed going ahead and registering is what you need to do, or do you need to, right the wrongs of your past and, work on things like VDA. And I think we'll get into that on another slide and just help kind of streamline the process so that you don't get it in an audit, and you can kind of get ahead of the game there. Great question.
Great question. Yeah, thanks for elaborating on that, Kate.
Sure. So yeah, step number one, knowing where your business must collect and remit tax. So again, this is something that Avalara will do for you on a call. We call it our own compliance analysis, and we'll help you and give you a variety of links and guides and a variety of information to help you understand and see where your business should be moving forward with.
One thing I wanted to mention real quick, Kate, just
Sure.
as you're going through these slides, I think it's important to note, and we hear this from some Volusion customers as well, these different steps, a lot of the time consuming tasks is understanding and then tracking, right? So filling out the returns, doing calculations, all those things that we can do for you in terms of automating it are great, but we also, to keep in mind, we also do things that we make sure up front with the implementation for Volusion, everything is coded properly, everything is implemented. So we ensure that everything is functioning correctly according to all the different laws, and then tracking, like for example, you'll have a dashboard that has a heat map of the United States. So as you're trying to measure, instead of having to manually track your sales, because every state has a different threshold, we'll do that for you, and then we'll alert you and say, hey, we need to go ahead and get you registered here now.
Exactly. Great point. Great point. So yeah, when we do go ahead and get you registered, again, you can just see here, these are some typical items that are needed. Everything at Avalara, we just guide you, and we have a variety of services that we can offer, but obviously, you can do some things on your own, and we can certainly help you do other things as well. So you can register on your own, you can have Avalara's business license team register you, and then we also can do a NEXUS study or a risk assessment analysis of your business to help you kind of understand, what should be my next step. I'm not sure. Shoot, I've been doing Amazon. I've had inventory in these states. What should I do now? So we can help help you and guide you on those decisions for sure. So if you do have some prior obligations and aren't sure what to do, you can have Avalara's tax advisory team do an assessment for you. And from there, I had mentioned earlier, sometimes we recommend that you do what's called a VDA or voluntary disclosure agreement. And that's where you say, all right, state of Texas, I made a mistake. I should have been registered here. Instead of me paying back sales tax that I should have charged my customers for the past 10 years when I triggered NEXUS, instead, I'm going to do your VDA process, which Texas might say, and again, I'm making this up, but maybe Texas says, all right, well, you only have to pay the past 3 years or 4 years, and we actually don't want you to pay any penalties or interest. We appreciate you, Mr. Business, for coming forward and being a good citizen and righting the wrongs of your past. Thanks for the money, and thanks for continuing to charge our customers here money. We can't wait to get it. So that's kind of what we can do and kind of help walk you through that and help you make some of those decisions if need be. So we've talked about step number one. Where do I need to be registered? Step number two. Okay, now I need to register. Well, step number three is, I think what most people think of Avalara and other sales tax compliance services is, I got to charge the right rate. What is the correct rate? Well, this says 12,000. We think the number is closer to 13,000 different tax jurisdictions in the USA. What does that mean, a jurisdiction? Well, some states have a flat tax. I believe the state of Michigan, they don't have local tax. It's just a flat 6% rate or something like that, right? But that most states have county level, city level, and special taxes. When you go to vote every year, oftentimes on the voting, there is some things about, do you vote yes to redo all the roads for $20 kajillion or whatever it might be, right? And so where do you think they get that money? Well, guess what? They get part of it from things like sales tax. So they might add a special local jurisdiction. And so what Avalara's cloud software does is we update all these changes, and we do it every single month. We have a team of 200 professionals that this is what they do all day long. Talk about sales tax super nerds. Darren, you think you and I are in that top 5%. Imagine those people. We've got nothing on them. So yeah, that's really what happens. So we make sure we get that rate. And now your customers at checkout in Volusion they're not going to see 7 different rates. They're going to see one lump sum. You were charged $18.42 in tax, right? But on the back end, in Avalara software, we keep all of that data. And that way we know we can get that money back to those jurisdictions when we remit that money on your behalf, or if you choose to continue to file your own returns and remit that money as well.
And that's a great point too. I think because like Kate, we said that just increases the customer satisfaction thing, right? Like how many times have you gone on a website, put an order in the cart and said, oh, it's $85. And then you go to the like 2 more screens a couple of minutes later and also it's $96 because of tax. When you have a Volusion site and Avatax and Avalara software is integrated, it's to the sub-second transaction. As soon as it's calculated, it takes a second for us to calculate the right rate, apply it to the invoice, and your customer sees that total right away.
Exactly. And if any of the fine folks on this call here, if you happen to live in Commerce City, Colorado, or maybe anywhere else in Colorado, you might know this trick. You might want to deliver goods that you're having shipped this holiday season to your neighbor whose rate might be 4.75% instead of your rate, which is 9.25%, right? And so, of course, I'm kind of joking here, but really and truly, it's a real thing where people don't realize how nitty-gritty the calculations in the jurisdictions are. So people think, oh, I'm just going to Google and look up a zip code, right? And I'm going to understand what the rate is there. Well, zip codes aren't good enough. Zip codes are for the U.S. mail, right? They're not for all the local jurisdictions. So we automate this whole process for you. So we talked very briefly about this extremely important part of sales tax compliance. If you remember one thing from this webinar, if you are selling at all to any exempt customers, perhaps the military, other exempt actual customers, or if you are selling through a wholesale model, perhaps you've got your Volusion site selling to the end customers, and then you've got something on the back end, right? You have an ERP system or some other invoicing system where you are selling through some resellers. This is a critical, important aspect of sales tax compliance that most people, and I'm talking the biggest of biggest, I mean, Darren, you and I have shared some stories. I have, a furniture manufacturer that's selling $500 million of furniture a year that didn't realize they needed these sales tax exempt certificates to be on file. So what we can do is we can completely automate this process for you, and we can help you understand it. And maybe you only have a few customers. Well, certainly you'll benefit from a conversation with Avalara to help guide you on that. But if you have dozens, hundreds, thousands of possible tax exempt certificates you need to have on hand, it's really important to make sure that you have a system in place for that. And so what we do is we help you with that. Very important.
I think, yeah, it's super important too. Like we talked about at the front end of this, the implications and the repercussions of not doing things correctly. Kate will tell you, she talks to people, I mean, auditors, they can come in and find one, say, out of date certificate, or if it's not filled out correctly, they'll fail you from an entire audit standpoint. And it's easier for them to find that and ding businesses and customers on that than it is to comb through other stuff. So they really do look for these things for the exempt sales to be done properly.
Exactly, you are so correct. So we're at the final and last sort of step of this process, which is to get that money back to the state. Avalara's dashboard is really streamlined and user-friendly. You have unlimited access to it. And you can either, log in and extract the data every month and file your own returns, or you can have Avalara file returns for you. And so this is an automated process. We avoid things like late payment. I don't know. I'm sure that there's some folks on this call that just, you got busy, right? And here we are, holiday season, talk about busy. You're filling orders, you're on the phone with your customers, you're, doing all kinds of things, you're talking to your vendors, and you forget to file your tax returns that month for the 1 or 2 or 3 states that you were registered in, right? So we take that over for you. We can automate the process and make sure that you benefit from things like prepayment. Some states offer, if you prepay, they actually will give you some money at the end of the year saying thank you. So it's a really nice process. We have several customers that have chosen just to use this service of Avalara's, right? So we can file returns for you We can just manage your tax exempt certificates, and we can kind of do whatever it is that you really need us to help you with.
Hey,
So,
we had a question come in, if you
yeah,
want to address it really quick. So it was actually a great question, so I figured we'd talk about it real quick. It's regarding the certificates,
sure.
their businesses. She's just wondering how the process works for us collecting them. Like, do they still have to collect them, scan them into their system, and we just store them, or do we, does Avalara software actually collect that for them?
Yes, that's such a great question. So again, everything with Avalara is what is it that you need us to help you with? There are options. You can do that work yourself and put them into our system, or you can have Avalara's managed service team do that work for you. So what we do is you tell us who your customers are and what states that we need to get those certificates for. We run an email campaign or US postal mail campaign, whatever suits your customers, or a combination of the two. We actually email the customers. We send them a link to a portal where they can actually follow a digitized method. You know, are you a reseller? Yes. What state is it? Yes. And we actually help give them the correct certificate. So we make sure they're giving us the correct certificate. And then what we do is we have a real person at Avalara that goes through each and every certificate. We make sure that it's accurate, that it's correct. We can ask the State Department of Revenue that make sure that the tax ID number is correct. And sure enough, we've got it in our system. You can sort through by expiration. Florida is not only a beautiful state to vacation in, it's also a state that makes tax exempt certificates difficult, and they expire. The reseller certificates, as it stands today, they expire every year. So you can log in your dashboard, you can submit right from there a request to your those customers every November or so time frame to get that updated certificate for the next year. So yeah, great question.
Yeah, great question.
So some tips to streamline tax compliance, and we are almost through, I promise, folks, and thanks for letting Darren and I nerd out, as we call it, on sales tax compliance. So these are the steps, right? So we can help you with a NEXUS study if need be, and help you kind of uncover the where, and we can get you registered with our Avalara licensing team. We calculate the taxes with our Avalara AvaTax, that's our engine, and then we track and manage exempt sales with Avalara Cert Capture, which we recently just renamed to Exemption Certificate Management Pro. And then of course we can remit the money back to the state for you and do it in a timely fashion. So we have just a variety of services. Like I said, it's really just what you need. It really, really is. As I mentioned, I love working with solution customers. I have had customers that are just teeny tiny starting out. They haven't even had a sale yet. And then I have customers that have 3 websites and you know, an ERP system, and they're a manufacturer, and they're just selling through all kinds of different channels. So it's really great. We can help you with all of that. The final piece of this little wheel here is the fiscal representation. So if you folks are selling over in the EU and UK, not sure if you've had any issues with things getting stuck in customs, or you've been hearing some things on the news, you've been researching something. So the Volution integration can help manage the VAT tax for you, and Avalara we can register you as a business there. We can assign proper classification tariff codes to your products to make sure that they don't get stuck in customs, and make that a nice process for you. And then of course we can remit that money on your behalf. So we have one more piece of this. I don't know about you, Darren. I like to save money as much as I can. I'm a coupon shopper. If something pops up and I'm going to get 20% off a new set of my Avalara orange earrings or something, I'm a sucker for that, right? So the SST program is absolutely fantastic, and we'll help you understand more about this. You can even check out Avalara's website and look at the SST program section of that to walk you through. But essentially, 24 states say, hey, we get it, folks. We know this is a challenge. We know that you have to register in new states, and now you're filing returns, and there's all these things, but we want our money, right? States want their money. So this is free to you. If you do not have a physical presence in the 24 states, maybe you only need to register in 1 or 2 of these SST states. All of the things are free. Avalara can register you for free. We calculate the tax for you for free in those states, and then we can file the returns for free. So it's a really nice process. And again, myself and other Avalara consultants, we will, kind of help you understand, and we'll do a compliance analysis that will provide the information on there. So it's a really, really nice setup there. So why would you want to do this? Well, hopefully, you've kind of already sort of understood some of this, the complexity, and it's not all about audit risk. It's not, oh, the auditors are going to get you. Yeah, that's a possibility. You have a website. You are out there. I am an auditor. I can find you, right? But there's more to it. So we help make this part of your business efficient. You don't need to spend 10, 20, 30 hours a month doing this work, right? And so we can take those things off your plate. Your customers can be satisfied. We make it so easy for them to submit the tax exempt certificate. We make it so easy for them to understand why they were charged the tax they were if they have a question about it. And then, of course, we're obviously lowering your risk, and we're allowing you to focus on revenue driving activities, not sales tax compliance. Leave that to the super nerds, right, Darren?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's our conclusion there.
Perfect timing. We actually had, I think I'm going to run through, Kate, because I know we're almost at time, but there's 3 other questions in the chat, and I think you pretty much talked about all of them, but there were some good ones. So if you want to reiterate on something, but there was one from Paul who was wondering, when you hit an economic nexus threshold, are you automatically registered in the state? And I think you went through that, but if you want to touch on that again.
No, you're so right. That is a really, really important thing. And I think sometimes there's just so much to learn and so much information, and people get overwhelmed in some of our initial calls. We try to keep it as simple as we can, and sometimes that gets a little overlooked. So Avalara will never make a business decision for you. We are just here to guide you, and we'll send you an email that says, hey, Paul, you've hit 80% of Georgia's economic nexus threshold. You might want to get registered. And then, Paul, what you can do is you can go ahead and log into your Avalara dashboard, click a couple of buttons, and Avalara can go ahead and get you registered. You can register yourself, or you can not register at all, right? So you have those options there.
Great. And then similar topic, but and I love the upfront of this question. How bad is it to wait for them to find me, so to speak? If we may have Nexus, are they really going to come after me? Do I really need to register? Like, what are the implications there?
Exactly. And we're not here to scare you. We are, we want you to trust in us and trust that we're going to do this right for you and help guide you. So, if you were to get audited, it's up to each state and what their laws are. Most states have an unlimited look back period, meaning they can say you triggered Nexus 10 years ago, and therefore you owe all this money. So that's always a possibility. But as we mentioned previously, if you go forward and do something like a voluntary disclosure agreement, we help negotiate and reduce that to a 3-year or a 4-year look back or something like that, in addition to no penalties and interest.
Great, good stuff. I do want to say from as you can see, Kate and I's information there, from what we like, from a partnership standpoint with Avalara and Volusion, we like to be there. We work together to work with the clients. So if you can reach out to us one of 2 ways. You can contact your team at Volusion, and they'll get in touch with Kate and I, and then we'll reach out accordingly. Or you can feel free to email us directly, either one of us there, just say, hey, I attended the webinar, have some more questions, because like we were saying before, hopefully this was very helpful. Hopefully you got a lot of good information out of this, but it is oftentimes a 30-minute phone call where we can dive into the specifics of your business, find out if there's a need there, and then just kind of go over and highlight the options for you.
Absolutely. And when you say find out if there's a need there, a promise that I make is you might not really need Avalara yet. Maybe you're curious, and maybe you're doing things right, and maybe you're growing, maybe you're super new and you're just not sure. So certainly reach out to us. Happy to, again, have that 30-minute call with you and just, give you some information so that you are ready if and when you feel like you do need to move forward with Avalara or some other solution for sure.
Absolutely. Blake, thank you again very
Yeah,
much
thank you,
for
Blake.
doing this. I don't know if you wanted to jump in and add anything or say goodbye, but happy to turn it over to you for a second.
Yeah, no, thanks for, I think you guys covered everything exceptionally well. So thank you so much. We really appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you all for attending. We really appreciate it.